I'll shout out quickly Malmo for jumping in quickly to take over tracking, so I'm not doing comms and tracking all at the same time. Greatly appreciated. Thanks, Nobly. It looks like we're about to get started on the restream now. We start with different starts, prieR starting in Link's House and MrByer starting out in Sank. prieR likely going to check the Lake Hylia Island here. And we see just a compass this time. So prieR is actually going straight to Eastern here. This is something that you might put off for a while, so it can be good to check early. He's going to get some information up, as well as get 3 item checks here. And Green Pendant Eastern. Can be useful later for certain glitches, but for now it's at least something we can hit some switches with and get some dead rocks out of our way when we head up to the mountain. And we're not finding much on MrByer's side either. Just some health at the moment. We see MrByer checking Lumberjack, which looked like it was just a red rupee. And gonna head up the mountain on MrByer's side with the DMA. Unfortunately for MrByer, he has no bombs and no way to hit the switch currently in Hera, which means we're likely gonna have to save the old man and then go somewhere else. And prieR is going to head down to Kakariko. There's a lot of checks down here. Some people put it off for a while, but there's high density, so lots of options. Meanwhile, MrByer is navigating through the dark, saving the old man. Find our first bottle and our first glitching item of the seed, so that will be particularly helpful. MrByer takes an unfortunate death from the rocks, frozen in place, saving the old man. And MrByer is going to collect some bombs here, get the first bombs for them for the seed. It has absolutely nothing. Looking for something here, just some more keys. prieR finds the hammer in the well, which not really needed in No Logic, but is a nice weapon to have nonetheless. It can help circumvent having to do a couple of glitches as we go on. and a sword on the bottle vendor. So hopefully MrByer is not going to put off Kakariko for too long. But farming up a bit of money from Houlihan, thanks to the unlocked camera that we get from doing the DMT, and checking Link's house this way. prieR finds our cave state big key in Chicken Hut. So GT is one of 4 big keys that allow us to open big key doors and big chests while we're in a dungeon in cave state. That would be Hyrule Castle, Evestown, Todd, and Ganon's Tower. And so, as I'm sure we'll see at some point soon, when we're in cave state, we can open all of these checks without having the big key for those dungeons themselves. Fire is showing off the swim clip here, gets it really fast, and so we can clip on diagonal terrain while we're swimming to just swim right on through the mountain and head over here to Ice Rod Cave. Still without any items. The Skull Dig on Race Game, that's a single check. It's nice to have before we go there, but ultimately just one check. Yeah, MrByer was a bit low there, so he had to bomb himself back in. prieR has clipped down from Kakariko to the desert area and is looting desert here. Meanwhile, MrByer, 6.5 minutes in, not a single item in his inventory still, so hopefully he'll find something soon. And prieR is going to use a quadrant glitch here, so this will let us get the 2 right side chests in desert without having to actually open that key door. We're going to break the camera with the quadrant glitch and then take a transition, which basically puts us across to the next room on the right. He does have the key, but doing this way will save the key, but there's not really much reason for that, so this is the classic glitch brain kicking in. Just doing glitches because that's what we do in this mode. MrByer gets his first item, a book. Not going to be able to do too much with that just yet, but see if that leads to anything later. And as Malmo's mentioned in chat, we don't actually know what prieR got because the sprites were distant, so they were at least invisible, so we didn't see what came out of the chests. Do get our Master Sword in Agina's cave though. Check I skip quite regularly. MrByer picked up a couple of bomb upgrades earlier, so fighting these Moldons with just bombs shouldn't really be too taxing. And is most likely going to show us MrByer continues the trend of finding items we need to use with swords that he doesn't have. We now have Ether and the book. We have to be a little careful here to get this done with a single bomb so that we don't kill ourselves while we're juking to King's Tomb. MrByer here doing a a bomb juke, which basically snaps us past the transition of the door, lets us take it in the wrong direction, gets a third GT small for his efforts, but does that very nicely by throwing the bomb off to the right hand side so he doesn't take any damage. Now prieR's got Master Sword and the book here, so could well check this tablet that he's coming up to and get whatever's there. Meanwhile, MrByer is actually going to get his red boomerang. And just some money on the pedestal. Yeah, to answer the question from X1372 in chat, we start with boots. This is no logic for those who aren't familiar with the mode, so the items are placed throughout the world with absolutely no logic at all. Any item can be absolutely anywhere, and this often requires us to use some of the biggest glitches in the game, minus some that people are familiar with as EG and arbitrary code execution. We don't use those, but we use everything else we can to get to those items and glitch our way through the game to kill all 7 crystal bosses and gather all 7 crystals. Kill Agatu and then kill Ganon. Meanwhile, MrByer found his first actual weapon, a sword, in Hera Basement. And is going to head out from here while prieR cleans up some of the checks that MrByer did. We also play with what we call double rods in this tournament, so we actually have 2 of each of the ice rod and the fire rod in the item pool, and the reason we do this is it kind of encourages some low percentage go modes so that you don't have to necessarily find the single ice rod to be able to kill Trinex, and it prevents the issue where either the rod are on Trinex that would prohibit you from killing that boss. So the sword making Spiral Cave very easy here. No dodging Moldorms or anything. And we get one of those ice rods I was just mentioning. prieR following up with what MrByer did earlier, while MrByer heads over to Paradox Cave. Got 7 checks here. No, so we don't have the extra hookshot, but there's a few different glitches we can do that basically unlock the camera in Swamp Palace, and what that allows us to do is get the small puffs off the screen, and the game, because they're off screen, the game assumes that they're dead, and that puts Argus into his second phase, which allows us to kill him without killing the smaller puffs, and we can do that with many other weapons. Not much else on the mountain, so we'll see where MrByer is going to head to now. Probably Kakariko. prieR, meanwhile, looks like they're going for the swim clip to the back of Escape. This bypasses the rocks that we have to pick up, and so we can get the 3 items back there. And MrByer instead has actually headed to Castle Tower. We don't have any keys, so we'll just get the first check here. Looks like prieR was a little bit too low. MrByer's got to be a little careful here, but looks like he's got the guy on the ropes. And to just finish off these 2 guys for the next item. After a little bit of a chase. So despite having the 3 small keys, MrByer doesn't have the GT big key, so it's likely going to clear out Hyrule Castle here, which will allow them to get that Cave State big key I was talking about. Hyrule Castle being one of the others that are available there. Going to check Uncle first at least. And prieR gets the swim clip the second time, avoids the rocks, drops down into the back of Escape, and finds his second bottle. So with 2 bottles and a Master Sword already, prieR's a good way on his way to being able to complete most of the game. Of course, we have no idea what most of our dungeons are right now, so we've got a way to go yet. And so prieR is doing a different way to get into King's Tomb here. By jumping off in a very particular way, you land halfway between that dark rock and the bush, and the game thinks that you can pick up the bush, that you're picking up the bush, which you don't need any gloves for, but you're actually on top of the rock, so it picks up the rock for you instead. And yeah, we see MrByer into Hyrule Castle, into Escape here. Gonna go all the way to the Zelda cell and pick up that big key. prieR are going to pick up their Tempered Sword in the basement cage in Hera here. And prieR is going to get themselves this compass that's sitting on Ether Tablet. Oh, it's a map, my bad. Map to Eastern, which unfortunately for prieR we already know from talking to Sahasrara that it's the green pendant. MrByer clears out Escape, but just gets that big key for his troubles. Alright, looks like MrByer is going to head to Palace of Darkness now, so we use a clip here to get into the bottom of the Spectacle Rock Cave, and we use a bomb clip to clip through the wall, and directly south of this tile is actually the end of the map, but we wrap around to the top, which is where Palace of Darkness is. Colloquially known as Kiki Skip, because we skip Kiki, the monkey at the front, and MrByer finds a bow. So we're not going to need that in this version of Pod. We're in Cave State. I mentioned we wrapped around the map, and an effect of that is that we've despawned all of the sprites. So you see the statues not there on the right, we won't have any of the crystal switches, but we also won't have any of the enemies that are in here, which means we don't have to worry about killing anything. We can just go through and loot the place. prieR is just following up with what MrByer's done. On the mountain, picks up that ice rod as well. We saw a blue mail on the chest, the bridge chest in Pod there, and now we're going to bomb jump over, clear out the dark side here. Samaria in the Pod big chest, MrByer's first glitching item. So with MrByer with the Samaria and prieR with 2 different bottles, we might see some pretty different routes here depending on how prieR goes. Gain Samaria, probably one of the most broken items that we use for glitches. We can do a lot of different glitches there, including duplicating chests, corrupting transitions, which allow us to go between dungeons, go between rooms that we don't expect, that you wouldn't normally see. We also find the big key to Eastern. We have ways around that, but it's nice to have if we need to go there, but with it being the green pendant, probably not. MrByer also finds a glove in pod, so this can help with a few things. It will make checking back of escape a bit quicker, won't have to do that swim click that prieR did. And if MrByer ever goes to CAC and gets the hammer and we need to do Ice Palace, that saves us a large glitch at the end of that. Okay, prieR is going to show us our first YBA of the seed here. So they use their red potion on the same frame as transitioning into the next room, which corrupts the transition and actually sends us half a tile ahead, which now puts us into Thieves Town. And so because they've got their GT big key I mentioned earlier, they can open all of these big key doors that you'd normally need the Thieves Town big key to open. And in a rare occurrence, we have the hammer, which means we can also get to the big chest and open that here too. They'll continue on backwards through the dungeon, unlock everything, and then they can go back in to pick up all the chests and kill the boss. So we see prieR unlocking all of the doors, and we're most likely gonna pick up a couple more on our way out. We find the big key of pod in pods. Of course, we didn't know that when we were on our way here, but that gives MrByer a key that he unfortunately already had from Hyrule Castle. And he also opened up the bombable room there on the right. Normally takes you to a couple of fairies, but we most often use that to get to Hookshot Cave via a couple of glitches, either a bomb juke or, knowing MrByer, some quadrant glitches. So prieR, meanwhile, came from the secret passageway with the uncle in it, and is now in the Village of Outcasts. prieR is actually in the fake Dark World, so as far as the game is concerned, he is in the light world, but for this screen, he can actually navigate around the dark world. As soon as he transitions off of this screen, the game will switch back to the light world, but it allows you to get these few checks without having to worry about having the Moon Pearl. MrByer is doing a statue drag here, so this allows us to, again, bypass some transitions, which allows us to cross between different parts of the dungeon. We first got to quickly pop outside to fix our camera so we don't get stuck in a second. And through a careful series of bomb manipulations to keep that statue drag state, we're going to bypass the transition north. MrByer unfortunately hit the A button there, which reset the statue drag, so he's going to have to do this initial setup again. I see the conversation going on in chat about every single dungeon being linked to each other through desert, which is entirely possible. So not too much for prieR from Thieves Town. Does pick up the shovel at some point. And now we are likely off to go bomb the attic and kill Blind. So MrByer here getting those 2 bomb hits in, which knocks them out of the statue drag state while maintaining it. We failed a bit there on the first time, so what we need to see is when we go towards the entrance that the camera keeps scrolling, just like that. And now we can use the statue drag to bypass the entrance transition as well. And so we're going to pick up a few pots here, open a door and reset the camera. Reopen the door, dash back down, and this is going to put us in the room of Helmasaur King. We're actually behind the spikes here, so MrByer is going to bomb themselves out of the spikes, and now we can use bombs to take off Helmasaur King's mask. We find the Thieves Town big key in the attic of Thieves Town, MrByer's got to be a little careful here, being on 1 heart, but looks like he's got it down. Bo's going to make phase 2 relatively simple. And we succeed. So this will be our first dungeon cleared for the seed. Which is a crystal. We did also pick up the swamp map there. 2 of the dungeons, Swamp Palace and MrByer, can be some of the harder ones to complete, depending on what gear we get. Require some pretty specific glitches, so knowing what they are early is useful to know if you need to keep looking for items, or to keep a lookout for those items you need to actually clear them normally. While prieR takes blind all the way back to the beginning, MrByer is using a glitch called a quadrant glitch we call Turtle Power here. This is going to unlock his camera and allow him go to Hookshot Cave, as I mentioned previously. Yeah, so we've got 1 sword on the bottle vendor, 1 sword at Agina, and the other one in the Hera basement cage. MrByer only has the one from the basement cage so far. prieR has all 3. Kak also had the hammer as well, and 1 of our bottles. So we can see the camera's unlocked here thanks to that quadrant glitch, which allows MrByer to just put these mimics off screen. Okay, MrByer is going with his crazy triple pod quadrant glitch here. This is going to allow him to not only go to Hookshot Cave, but then transition north to go to GT to pick up the 3 chests behind Ice Armors, which are normally in GT, and then transition back down to get back onto the mountain. And as Malmo points out in chat, Thieves Town gave us absolutely nothing. The map of the dungeon on the boss and a pendant to go with it. And our shovel gives us the mirror shield as well. So MrByer is being careful here on these conveyors and releasing a sword spin at the same frame that they're moved across the transition thanks to the conveyors. Our camera is completely offset now, but we're looting the pots just before we transition over to Hookshot Cave. We transition north into GT, into the Ice Armor room, like I mentioned. We get the 3 chests here. Thank you for navigating the camera. And we'll find the hook shot up here, which is very nice, especially considering this transition south is going to take us directly back down to Hookshot Cave, which is going to let us use that hook shot right away. I haven't seen a map check from either player, but I was looking at prieR's screen for a second there. prieR, meanwhile, has Citrus clipped into GT. So prieR's sprite is actually his bunny sprite, and as we don't have the Moon Pearl, but through some careful 1-frame clipping, we can teleport down and then wrap up to the GT entrance. We death warp once we're into GT, and that puts us back as Link without the Moon Pearl. That means we can start clearing out some of this. With the hammer, we can actually clear out quite a lot. We do find the Hera small key in Hope Room, which we more often than not see used to unlock Swamp Palace from Tower of Hera. We did get a map check there from MrByer, but I didn't see a single thing. But it looks like Malmo caught that Maya is a pendant, so... I actually think that's Desert is a pendant, because we were in fake Dark World, now I think about it. So MrByer used Samara transition corruption there to allow him to dupe the contents of lava chest via the big chest. We could have collected that as many times as we wanted. Quick transition right brings us over to the pokey, which means we can pick up the key and then use the laser to respawn at the beginning of the dungeon. Yeah, and a good call from chat. prieR has picked up the fire rod in GT, so this trip is paying off for them. Yeah, Chex has got a good point. Just going this way means prieR is going to most likely get that hook shot, assuming something tragic doesn't happen on Ice Armos. So this early GT play could actually pay off, especially against MrByer using that quadrant glitch to get it instead. We find the Moon Pearl in Rando Room 2. So MrByer gonna go round 2 with the pokies for this key. This will let them go to the front of TR and actually collect up the rest of the items there. Do find the mirror in the compass chest there for MrByer, which is very helpful, particularly we don't have any bottles on his side at the moment. prieR indeed tops up her health, so we're going to have beams for Armos here. And on MrByer's side, we're going to use a Samaria transition corruption in this north door, which is going to adjust our coordinates 1 tile north, so when we take this transition on the right here, we're going to skip the fire requirement for the torches in TR, take us straight to the top here, and we find the flute and Soulkeeper Thieves. Flute is nice to get around, usually nicer when you've got a couple of bottles. We can use it to get to the witch's hut very easily. But that will probably drive MrByer to Kakariko finally, which to activate that and hopefully pick up the rest of his goodies after we check escape. And we find prieR getting that hook shot, which is going to make some things certainly easier and will unlock certain glitches with the powder. We do have the ability to set our index. prieR doesn't have the greatest equipment to do that, although we can do some slot 6 push in with some sparkles with the ice rod and the red boomerang. Not too sure how familiar they are with that though. Yeah, indeed. Between them, we definitely have go mode. Byer may pick up on that sooner than prieR does, as they're going to catch up with most of the items missing. Although that second bottle, I think, won't be got for a little while, if I remember rightly. prieR has climbed GT using Herapot and that hookshot, and it's going to clear up Moldorm for us. Give us a bit of information, and also lets us dupe some dungeon prizes via Hera later. There's MrByer's hammer, and I was mistaken, MrByer does have 2 bottles, so I have a lot of options here. prieR shows us that Hera is a crystal. walking straight past that bottom merchant with his sword to activate the flute. Hopefully we'll navigate backwards in 2 seconds to pick that up. And prieR is going to follow what MrByer did and head into pod here. Slightly different setup for this glitch, which requires a 1 frame correction afterwards before the teleport. But there we go, MrByer gets his sword. And it's now going to straight away use that flute to get to the witch's hut and pick up a couple of potions. And meanwhile with their bow, which will make stuck pushing a little easier. Didn't showed up on the map in Maya's location, but MrByer was in the fake dark world, which means that was actually the prize for desert, not for Maya. So we don't actually know everything just yet. Yeah, and as Malmo points out, that we know that the map for Thieves was on blind. And prieR only found that out by killing blind, so MrByer is not going to know that's a pendant until they do the same or find out their 7 crystals. prieR, however, could have potentially done a map check. I may have missed it, but if they've done a map check, they quite possibly know that Desert and Eastern are their other pendants. Which means we have knowledge ourselves of all the 7 dungeons, and that does mean we're going to have to clear out Swamp Palace and Maya and TR, so we need that Fire Rod, for 1 in GT. There's another one kicking around somewhere, so we'll see if MrByer goes to GT for that, or has to find the second one. And ideally, we get the medallion for Misery Maya, which will help us a lot, but we have a few other ways around that. We're just following in each other's footsteps here. MrByer picking up these keys and weapons, and prieR heading into the Helmasaur King fight. We saw him use the other way of getting out of the spikes there, rather than just bombing yourself, using the damage boost you get off of the spikes to clip through them. Yeah, indeed, if prieR's go moding, Kane is not going to be something he picks up. He's not going to want to go all the way to the back of pod. Which, I mean, if he's go moding now, maybe he's reasonably confident with the equipment he's got, but it would make things easier. MrByer, meanwhile, clearing out Desert. So MrByer is using an STC here on the right side to go to Thieves Town, so this negates having to go via Uncle. prieR is just save and quit out of pod, so definitely looks like they're just go moding. And MrByer bombs open the attic, and now he's going to do another. He's going to go and steal the key. Apologies, from Thieves Town by the looks of it, or possibly just navigate all the way back. He knows that Desert is a pendant. So we'll see what he decides to do here. Yeah, steals the key. We had the small key anyway, now we've got 2. prieR is heading into the Dark World with a DMD here. Of course, having that Moon Pearl makes this a lot easier for him. MrByer can use that key that he stole to actually open the door here, or the one that he had before he stole, the one from Thieves Town, to open the door here. We'll check these chests without having the desync sprite, so we'll see exactly what we get. So we got Quake earlier, so prieR has that Quake. It was just invisible at the time. So 2 out of 3 medallions is good for Misery Maya when we get there. And MrByer is now going to use the Pain of Samaria to do an STC to go to the back of Swamp. This is going to let us Potentially kill Argus, depending on what MrByer's loadout is, but at least get some checks back there as well. prieR, meanwhile, going straight to the back of Skullwoods to kill Moth. So the east STC here is a little complicated. We have to juke past the door, and then we have to come back a couple of pixels to put ourselves right on the transition, because we cannot snap to the transition. We snap a few pixels before it. Looks like we get it though, and now we transition north, and this puts us in the back of Swamp Palace. So we're gonna take these stairs up. This resets our tile set. Head back down, and now we can use Cane Samaria or Bomb to splashless check these chests. We get another bottle, which is nice. prieR, meanwhile, onto their third crystal. MrByer here wants to be careful. No, it's fine. We're just mirroring out. So curious what prieR is going to do here. Byer may well check Agina here and get his Tempered Sword. Nice little clip to go from the pedestal, from the tablet to K45 here. Yeah, prieR is really going for it. I mean, they have everything they need if they can pull everything off, so this could be a very interesting rest of this seed. As Malmo mentions, getting the Swamp Crystal is going to be the hardest thing here. We have a couple of options. Fake Clippers being the easiest option here. Well, not easiest, but let's say quickest, if you can pull it off. The other would be deleting the sewer door via Hera with a double YBA. We do see that Maya is Bombo, so the one medallion that we don't have. Byer picks up his Tempered Sword. So that sewer door deletion I just mentioned can be used to get our Misery Maya crystal as well, without going actually into Maya. Bit of a discussion going on how we're getting to bosses. Indeed, I would have assumed prieR is getting there also from Hera. We have the Hera small key we can unlock and kill Argus in Hera state. Or indeed, if you can do the fake Clippers, you just do it while you're in Swamp state with a green YBA, green spin YBA in the back of Swamp. MrByer is heading to Thieves Town here, so we're going to see him clear up some checks that prieR have already covered. prieR is going to pick up a bit of ammunition here. So just to go back to that sewer door deletion I mentioned, so there is the door behind the throne in Hyrule Castle that takes you to the escape sequence. When you navigate that south to north, that actually changes your dungeon ID, and there are a few that get swapped between each other using that. So we can switch to the dungeon ID for Maya via going from Palace of Darkness, or Swamp Palace from coming from Castle Tower. We can also do Thieves Town from Hera, but we don't typically see that in this mode. And so what we typically do is we delete that door. It's a shutter door, so usually when you transition north, or you come from the north, when you're in the back of the escape sequence, there's a shutter in the way. You can't actually go through it. But by doing a double YBA from Hera, we delete that shutter. We can dash right through it. And then transition back south to north, which changes that dungeon ID in the game. Now, of course, we then need to get to that door from the dungeons I mentioned previously, but we have to get the Maya prize, the Maya crystal, sorry. We can come from Palace of Darkness. We can do a YBA, which wrong warps us to Hera, and then there's a clip to go from Hera into the sewers. And in Castle Tower, we can climb out of the Aga 1 arena, which also takes us to the sewers. Doomtap admitting to us that he has no brain in chat. We appreciate the honesty. And Check's joining him in that club. So prieR's in Ice Palace here. We skirt over this, but we came from the Kakariko Well. We did a North YBA, which transitions us into Ice Palace in Cave State. This means we're going to have to exit and re-enter the dungeon to fix our dungeon ID to pick up the prize. And MrByer killed Blind, so we're going to head back and get that. You may have seen when MrByer killed Blind, it dropped a compass. This is a bug in the rando code, unfortunately, that sometimes drops a compass when the boss dies in Cave State. For this particular tournament, we've banned the collection of that because it seems sporadic of when it happens. And what it would usually do is give you a free teleport to the beginning of the dungeon. So because it may happen for one player and not the other, we've banned the collection of that. If you accidentally collect it, you just have to save and quit or mirror out of the dungeon, which you shouldn't be able to do. You're in Cave State. So a save and quit will resolve that. An unfortunate death there for prieR in Ice Palace. They are ahead at this point, it seems like, so you might think that they have the time to spare, but things can kind of change very quickly here. So yeah, as Malmo's making out, prieR could just catch up on equipment here, so we're going to see how this goes. Samaria being the biggest difference here. We do have a second fire rod out there. I think we saw it earlier in Maya Shed. So prieR's going to want to check that pendant, that medallion at some point. So it's not too far out of the way. Okay, prieR is going to do some dungeon clearing here. He's still at that one single crystal, so we're going to go up and kill Moldorm, do a bit of catch up. The other one's in GT. I didn't see necessarily where. Maybe maybe the Firewire room. Southwest room. There we go. So Thieves Town's actually a pendant, and prieR walked in, saw it was a pendant, and left again, because didn't even want to waste the time picking it up for the cutscene. prieR finds the flippers in Ice Palace. That's going to make Swamp Palace a breeze. That's not too great for MrByer at this point. We've still got to solve Maya, but Swamp's always one of the bigger problems, so having that solved is quite nice. So MrByer picks up the lamp here. I didn't see prieR get this earlier. This does give MrByer hook pushing, which is potentially how prieR got to Ice Palace. I may have missed that. Which could potentially make things a bit faster for him, given his experience with hook pushing here. Thought for a second we were going to set up a conveyor, but looks like we've changed our mind. prieR gets the spin YBA to Cold Stare, no problem at all, so prieR doesn't have that glove that MrByer has, so that meant that we had to use that spin YBA to drop a hole that we know for. And just finish forward stair here. That gets it done. We get our gold sword from Cold Stare. MrByer, meanwhile, has done a bunny citrus DMV to get down to the Dark World. prieR had the moon pearl for this, so it was a bit simpler. But we're going to walk into into Skullwoods and die, giving us link state and letting us clear the rest of the dungeon. The nice thing about Skullwoods is we never actually make an overworld transition going from the front to the back, which means that once we become Link, we can use that fire rod on the overworld to open the back without ever needing the moon pearl. prieR is looks like they're on their way to drain the dam, which this means that we're very likely going to see a swamp clear. MrByer using the Samaria there to pick the big key chest, if I'm not mistaken, from Skull without going back there. Oh, prieR accidentally opening the key there, the door there. That is the one key he did not want to spend in that situation. So that is a hard reset, and off to drain the dam again. Actually, I think this persists through reset, if I'm not sure, but I'm not too sure how that works. It does not, so prieR is going to unfortunately learn as soon as they actually successfully do the clip to Swamp Palace that it has not persisted. So MrByer, without the fire rod there, has done a hook push to get to the back of Skullwoods. Checks correcting Malmo and myself. It does persist. prieR is not going to regret anything. Oh no, we're going back again. We're going to find out very quickly. Yeah, indeed. I think it is an SRAM flag, so we're probably fine. MrByer setting up another hook push here. We are skipping everything and going straight to the boss. Yeah, so we do see it was still drained there for prieR, and so they just have to transition out, exit the Hera state, and come back into Swamp state. And so this is going to be just a very regular clear for prieR, clearing out this Swamp Palace. Did see the unfortunate death to Moth in your race, Malmo. Yeah, we did have one race earlier in the tournament where we had an unusually long VRAM. MrByer is checking the pedestal here. My previous race, my opponent pulled pedestal. It's not something we almost ever see. But indeed, I may well have wanted to go for that, given that's what they need to finish the game. Okay, so buyer's going to eastern here. This could be good. They could use this to go to Maya and then check Maya shed on the way out. And while prieR's making their way through Swamp Palace here. I'm a big fan of the Moth STC. I didn't finish it up, so I was saying that in dot resulted in him resetting and losing a lot of progress at the time, so that was an unfortunate conclusion to that race. prieR picks up his third ball in the back of Swamp, but not really going to be needed at this point. MrByer finds the Maya big key. That's a nice find, saves us a little bit of glitching around to get everything we need there, if we can get into Maya easily. Yeah, buyer's hook pushing is actually crazy. It's so fast. Setting up a quadrant glitch here. On buyer's side. Just going to tink off of one of these across the center of the screen. And this lets us get that first chest and the big key chest here very easily. Heart piece, or a heart container by the sounds of it. Nice thing about this is we transition north again and we reset our camera. No exiting and entering the dungeon to fix anything. Lets us navigate and continue on from where we were. prieR's finished up with Swamp Palace. I think at this point we will potentially swap over to prieR's audio. Given they are a reasonable amount ahead at the moment, but that could change at any moment. Which is incredibly quiet, so we'll bump that up. So buyerR indeed did also a very quick hook push to get into Misery Maya. We're going to navigate around here, and hopefully on our way out, we're going to pick up that fire rod. That is a good question from Chex. I'm not 100% familiar with this particular MSU. Which still is very quiet, and I'm trying to correct. There we go, I think that's a bit better. So prieR's also going to head into Misery Maya here, likely in a very similar way to Chex. Chex is, of course, MrByer, of course, is checking a few more things. We still need that fire rod on his side. prieR's using a YBA to get to Misery Maya, instead gets it first. Straight to the back and kill Vitreous, most likely. We are currently at 5 crystals for prieR and 3 crystals for MrByer. prieR's got the full Ice Palace clear and Swamp clear ahead of MrByer, so we've got quite a lead here, but we're going to have to see how well prieR does with the collecting crystal for. So prieR's setting up a hook push here. This can be a bit of a pain. prieR's going to miss out on that big key to Turtle Rock, although with the boomerang it doesn't really matter too much. So we set up a stuck push here, and we're going to release it in the top right of this fishbone area, and this should take us to the room before the boss room. There we go. Can be particularly difficult because you've got those shooters constantly firing at you. MrByer is going to go for a slightly different solution. For the really hard stuff until right at the end, because you never know what item you're going to find that's going to make it all easier. So prieR's still got to do one of the most complicated things, which is collecting the Maya prize via a different dungeon. Which can be a little bit time consuming. Of course, if you find bombos along the way, then that solves all of your problems. Yeah, 3 heart green mail Viddy here for prieR. We can see that Byer can be a little bit more aggressive in this fight because of that extra health and mail advantage. But gets it done. Of course, we've both come from Eastern Palace, so we're both going to pick up the green pendant to Eastern Palace from MrByer at the same time as each other. Okay, this is MrByer's chance to go check the Maya shed. Of course, no one has ever forgotten to do this. Luckily, he is not no one, so he goes and gets this. This is going to go in his fire rod, but he's got a bit of catching up to do, unfortunately. Yeah, there is very big wealth. MrByer 1880. This is partly to do with the fact that prieR has had to do a lot of YBAs. Which could be problematic for them if they're going to want to do this double YBA steward door deletion. MrByer, however, looks like we're on our way to kill Argus via Death Hole. We can afford an entire green potion, you are correct, Checks. And look, there's MrByer picking up even more money that's not needed. So prieR is going to do a wrong warp here to go from Palace of Darkness to Tower of Hera. We're going to use that. We're going to use that to, I would say, open up the big key door, but we don't have the Palace of Darkness big key. MrByer gets Death Hole. We just have to navigate ourselves invisibly through some invisible pits and transition to the Argus fight, and we have the hookshot, so we don't need to do that camera unlock that we talked about earlier, but you can see that it is unlocked scrolling down below the bottom of the screen. Curious what prieR is doing here without the big key to pod. The big key to pod is on the right side of pod, which we can see that they don't have. Ah, yeah, we're going to hook push past everything. We don't need YBAs. MrByer gets Argus down. Gets an ice rod for his troubles. And attempted to skip the fanfare there, I think. Doesn't quite get it, so we do pick up the pendant. This is the desert pendant, and it's actually going to warp us to the beginning of the dungeon from Swamp here. Now ByR can use a hook push here to go straight to the super tile that Moth is on, and this is going to let them get the swamp crystal very, very quickly. Oh, actually accidentally set up some north distance there, unfortunately. Yeah, that should be what's needed. There we go. prieR, meanwhile, is hook pushing past that sewer door I was talking about earlier. Don't have to delete anything because it's open on this side. We transfer north again, and prieR has successfully transitioned their dungeon ID from Palace of Darkness to MrByer. Get back to a boss arena to allow us to pick up that crystal. So we're going to do that by transitioning back up to the Tower of Hera. Successfully doesn't get stuck in the wall. Oh, prieR resets there. We could have just dropped down an Herapoid up to the boss arena. So we're handing a little bit of time back here to MrByer, who is MrByer is worried about resources here, it looks like. We do cold stare. Oh, prieR is supposed to here. We've changed our mind. We're going for the ByR's just attempting to show off. Yeah. Okay, there we go. ByR successfully into Ice Palace. prieR is unfortunately going to have to repeat that whole sequence. MrByer picking up the key, setting his small key count to 0 from 255. Okay. prieR gets the YBA, gets the wrong walk back down to Hera from Palace of Darkness. I am not too sure if Bot has a magic pre. Byer's not checking anything here. I think maybe realizes his opening route was a bit barren and took a while to get going, but it's on his way now. Okay, prieR's gonna repeat this hook push, stuck push, sorry, past the sewers door. Shows a very messed up map right there. Gets it stuck, and now we just have to go past the door. They done. Okay, prieR's gonna do a slightly different push to Hera by the looks of it, but the one they did previously was fine, so we can ask about that in the interview. A stuck push is a hook push, you're correct. We're going to do the South YBA here instead. Just requires a bit of a camera correction if we want to keep sprites and to not get stuck. That looks good. We get our sprites, which we didn't need in this game, but we make it all the way to Tower of Hera. We've come from Path of Darkness, through Hera, through Maya, and meanwhile, MrByer's filling up on some potions. MrByer's just got to get the Maya crystal and and the Maya crystal. So we've caught up here. No, we just got the Maya crystal. My apologies. prieR still with a little bit of a lead, but it's diminishing rapidly, unfortunately. Of course, prieR doesn't have the mirror, so we're going to have to do the mirrorless laser wrap here to get to laser bridge. That's prieR has to not double YBA or hook push to Trinex, but also has to get the Aga 2. Having both of those things mean MrByer is going to have a much quicker path. prieR gets mirrorless laser bridge though, so we're in laser bridge now. I did that in my own race, so I'm not too sure why I didn't think of the same thing, but Mamo makes a good point. With the boomerang, 0 stuck pushing from the back of Old Man Cave to Laser Bridge is very fast. And with having plenty of bottles, we can do the newly discovered laser dive to get to Aga 2. prieR gets the hook stuck successfully, sets our hook slot with the boomerang, and flies off through the big key door to see Trinex. MrByer on the other side also doing some pushes to bypass that door that prieR got to earlier. Gold Sword makes this an incredibly fast fight. gets it done and picks up their 7th crystal and 7th boss kill. So prieR now just has to kill Agatu and then head on into the Ganon fight. MrByer, meanwhile, is just about to grab their Maya crystal and is only a minute or two behind prieR. So let's see how this goes, but prieR does still have the lead. Yeah, and coming from this Maya crystal, dupe in Hero also means getting to the back of Old Man Cave is really fast. You just drop down and transition into the cave. Particularly for MrByer, that push is actually going to be quite helpful, given that we don't have the Moon Pearl on his side. MrByer is actually going to go for a overworld conveyor here by the looks of it, to get into TR instead. prieR is very low on resources. So we're likely going to buy some bombs with our last 50 rupees. 10 left. We've got 12 arrows, 15 bombs. Indeed, this does look like a push to the top of GT instead of B. To get the distance you need to be able to hit the transition on the east side here. Get some more arrows there, which is very nice for prieR. MrByer, on the other hand, got the downwards overworld conveyor successfully, and now we just have to clip onto the laser bridge entrance. This is looking good for prieR. Yep, successfully gets this, so we're now at the top of GT. We are navigating backwards. Okay, meanwhile, MrByer is killing themselves off to get back to Link State. Thanks, JD. Not as familiar there of having to reset the camera there. prieR picks up the extra bit of health from thanks to the Cave State boss just there, and a second. Is a lot nicer for the Ganon fight we're going to have. Byer had a pretty rough beginning and game. Really had nothing for almost 10-15 minutes and then dodged the fire rods for quite a while. prieR could come pretty close, but it's still... prieR has the lead here. Okay, prieR kills off Agatu and just has to kill Ganon. MrByer, meanwhile, has killed Trinex, and with that, Cane of Samaria can do a quick quadrant glitch to be able to get to the Agatu arena instead. Yeah, prieR did a really early full GT clear. Got him the Pearl on the Fire Rod. MrByer did go to GT early, but only for Ice Armos, which got him the hook shot a lot earlier, but we didn't have a way for hook pushing for quite a while. And then prieR got bailed out pretty hard with the flippers in Ice Palace when they were go-moding reasonably hard. But this is looking great for them. MrByer got the first quadrant, but unfortunately transitioned. manages to get the mirror on the one frame they had before falling in the pit. Arrows in the dark world. Nobody knows where they could be. Transitions, and it's going to fall. Correcting the camera, and then it's going to be able to dash all the way across here into the Agatu arena. prieR on the last phase of the Ganon fight. Looks like we're gonna clear it up here. And finish it off Ganon. One, which means we will get a game 3 between these two runners. And we'll see if we get either prieR or MrByer in here for an interview. Yeah, Malmo making a great point. Chex was unfortunately knocked down to the lower bracket yesterday by Malmo, but is in round 3 of the lower. And we are joined by prieR at today's winner. GG's prieR. How'd that go for you?
Thanks. GG's. I have no brain. That's horrible.
We had a few people in chat saying the same thing, so you can join them and get your GG's in chat for MrByer as well. Finishing out King and Ganon with an official racetime.gg time of 1 hour 22 and 51 seconds.
I had so many solutions for solving the end of MrByer crystal duping. Could have do a simple error pot. That was enough to finish.
Yeah.
The start, but I'm so dumb. I was so confused between the both strats with the YBA and the hook push. Yeah.
No, it happens to everyone. We were questioning what happened when you reset after dropping down, but it didn't cost you the race this time. So
major failure. But yeah, most of the things I needed to speed up a little bit the seed was in GT, so many things in GT this time. You don't want to go in GT, but we personally I had 3 small keys and the big key pretty early on, so I decided to make that play. But I don't know if it's really a good idea in no logic.
Well, that was definitely one of the differences here. So we're joined by MrByer as well. So GG's, MrByer.
GG's.
So we were just saying one of the big differences here was that prieR full cleared GT reasonably early, picked up a fire rod out of GT, got the hookshot and got the moon pearl, whereas you did the triple QG from pod, picking up your hookshot from ice almost, but missing out on that fire rod and that moon pearl.
Yeah, I was hoping that hookshot would be an advantage, but if you just go to GT, then
Yeah.
really. I probably could have gotten the fire rod earlier because I was planning to scout Meyer after Thieves, but I forgot to fix fake Dark World.
Yeah, I think I maybe mentioned at the time I was curious if you were going to do that. You brought it back quite close towards the end. prieR had a considerable lead for a while with all of those items, and at some point started go moding pretty heavy, a lot. But as they just said, he had solutions for the crystals and things, and nice YBA's done. A little bit of a hiccup collecting the Maya. We're at 2 or 3, but you came back. It was only a couple of minutes difference, so. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there was anything else. Obviously, Bombos never showed up. Finding flippers in Ice Palace, I'm sure, was a relief for both of you. Although MrByer didn't need it, but prieR ended up clearing Swamp Palace completely there.
Yeah.
I did MrByer medallion check, and when I saw that was Bombos, I was not very happy. I don't like that Meyer dupe that much, so I tried to find Bombos on the way, doing the quick checks, and thankfully finding the flippers. That was a great find.
Yeah, and I guess the other big difference here was that MrByer picked up the cane.
Never found it.
That you guys are going to have to get scheduled in.
Yeah. I'm not sure when, since I'm not free next week.
Yeah. Hopefully it won't take too long. We've got at least Chex, who's in lower bracket round 3, who is going to be waiting a while, unfortunately. But we'll see how schedules line up and things. Yeah. Do you guys have any other thoughts on the seat you want to talk about?
Not really.
We thank you for commentating and hoping in the race to commentate and track the race, hosting us. Thanks.
Yeah, no. At the last minute to track, given this is my first commentating track. And yeah, so we're gonna let the credits play out here. You guys don't have anything else to cover. I would just say GG's to you both. We're looking forward to seeing Game 3. Thanks to Malmo, thanks for SpeedGaming for hosting us, and we have another race in an hour, which will be hosted on the main SpeedGaming channel, just SpeedGaming. That's Breadcon versus Duden. And I think I saw some discussions in chat about, we've got JD and Chex on comms, and we've got other Tom going to be tracking us there. So come back in an hour on main SpeedGaming if you are interested in seeing more No Logic. And thanks for joining in.
Have a good day.